name's Kee. I'm the CTO at Oxen. We work on some of the bigger applications in the Oxen ecosystem, like Session and Lokinet. Been doing this for, I guess, nearly 4 years now. We started the company nearly 4 years ago. So yeah, it's exciting to be here. And hopefully some of your guests will learn more about Oxen as we kind of conduct this interview. Oxen is the first product we developed, which is a privacy coin. It's a fork of Monero, so it provides privacy by using ring CT, stealth addresses, and root signatures to kind of obfuscate where transactions are being sent from, who they're going to, and the amounts that are being sent. So that's kind of the basis of the whole network, and acts as the financial incentivization layer for these kind of second layer networks. And the second layer networks are Session and Lokinet. I think I see it mostly as the financial incentivization layer for the two bigger products, or for the second layer networks that we're building with Lokinet and Session. Now, it is a privacy coin by itself, and has some very attractive properties like Blink, which allows you to be able to instantly send transactions, and also Pulse, which is a proof of stake system, which means that it's environmentally friendly. We don't have the same kind of mining stressors that Monero has in terms of on the environment. It's much healthier for the environment. So it has those two aspects going for it, just as a coin. But I think it's been difficult to develop out a coin that is actually used in merchant services, which is where Monero has really succeeded. It's widely used, in a bunch of places, just accepted as a currency, and we haven't been able to get Oxen to that same level. So I think the way it actually works is mostly as a financial incentivization layer to Session and Lokinet. I think in the future we're going to be seeing kind of a more hybrid approach where Session and Lokinet are actually bringing value back to Oxen as well.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how I see it. Lokinet is a low latency onion router. So I mean, the most similar product that people would be aware of would probably be Tor. It acts to anonymously route IP packets, which is a little bit different from Tor, because Tor operates at a higher layer. The advantages of Lokinet, because it operates at the network layer, is that it can route a wider range of packets. So it can route UDP packets, it can route TCP packets, which means you can do voice and video calls over Lokinet. And it acts more like a VPN than Tor does. So you can kind of just send any applications traffic through Lokinet once it's set up correctly. So we've been working on that, I think, for nearly 3 years now. It's pretty widely deployed, like it's on the service node network, as I spoke about before with the incentivization. There's all of these, there's about 1,800 nodes that are running Lokinet and that route traffic. Well, I think if you're worried about your IP address and which parties are collecting that when you're interacting with the internet, for example, if you have someone that's a human rights activist and they're looking up information about human rights abuses in certain countries, like people being kept in jail or being tortured, and they're trying to find information about that on the internet, then their internet service provider can collect their IP address when they're accessing those websites, and be aware that they're actually accessing information that might not be sanctioned in that country. So that becomes a really big risk for someone that's a human rights activist. So if they were to use Lokinet in that case, the internet service provider would only see that they're connecting to Lokinet. They wouldn't see that they are accessing information about human rights abuses in that country. And that's really how it kind of protects users in that aspect, and it's stronger than maybe some of the existing services that they might be using, like a VPN, where you have to just trust the VPN provider that they're not going to leak the fact that you're accessing that information. Adds additional hops to that to be able to further protect the user. Our biggest product by far in terms of users is Session, and that's probably the one that most people have heard of. Session is a private messaging application that focuses specifically on metadata protection. So, a lot of messaging applications will typically focus on encryption of messages. We also do encryption of messages, but we also focus on hiding the user's IP address, making sure that there's no link between the user's phone number and their account by removing phone number registration. And there's just a whole bunch of smaller things that we do in there as well. Metadata is generally everything that is associated with a message that is not actually the message itself. So, say I was sending you a text message that said, like, "Hi, Jose," or something. That would not be metadata. That's the message itself. And we can do a bunch of stuff about that. We can encrypt that data so that only you and I can read that message. But if we just encrypt it and then we send it through a service that has a centralized server, then we've got to think about the other data that's going to be attached to that. So in that case, it's probably going to be both of our IP addresses are going to that central server where it can collect information. And for people who don't know, an IP address is kind of a digital identifier of your network identity that is given to you by your internet service provider. So yeah, both of our IP addresses would end up in a server in that aspect. The time that we sent the message would be on the server. If we had any account identifiers that the server knew about, that would also be on the message. There's just a litany of data that can be collected at that point by the centralized server. That is not, it's not actually associated, it's not the message itself, but it's everything around that basically. Well, I think you can't avoid metadata when you're talking about privacy. It's probably the biggest thing that hasn't been explored other than encryption. I think encryption was a really good start on providing privacy because obviously, if I send you a message and that data is in plain text, well, then everyone can read it and I've lost some of my privacy, right? That was kind of a first step. I think the second step is now starting to look at metadata as well. And I think the OPTF really has a mandate to look at metadata seriously, and that's what we're doing in our products as well. Because it's in some ways a lot harder to tackle metadata protection than it is encryption. Encryption can just be applied locally, and if the other person has the key, they can decrypt it. Metadata exists naturally in the construction of the internet, and there isn't really a super simple way to get around it. Onion routing is much more complicated than just encryption. It has several layers of encryption. Your connection is being bounced through multiple nodes. So I think it has additional complexity, and organizations need to take it seriously and tackle it. And I think OPTF is one of the organizations that is taking metadata seriously as a threat to privacy and putting a lot of its resources into tackling that as an issue. The main two products that we've been working on that are user-facing products are Lokinet and Session, and that's what we've been spending most of our time developing. Obviously, if you're aware of Signal and what they've been doing, or some of the other private messaging applications and what they've been doing, they offer a level of privacy to users, but we believe that Session offers an additional level of privacy on top of that because it doesn't use phone numbers, it onion routes all of your messages, which obfuscates your IP address. It kind of takes that privacy enhancement to the next level, and that's in line with the OPTF's kind of mission as an organization, which is a human rights mission to kind of be able to give people who are in restrictive countries access to free communications without worrying about being snooped on by, government organizations or, these kind of corporate entities that might want to spy as well. So those are the two main products we developed. Well, I think the main thing that I would like users of Lokinet and Session to feel is that they have more freedom to be able to discuss issues that affect them in the day-to-day. I think, yeah, if you're in a state or if you're in a country or a corporate entity where you can't freely discuss ideas that pertain to your safety or pertain to your life, I think that's very restrictive and can have a very negative mental effect on someone. And by providing a kind of space where people can freely discuss issues and also can discuss issues like human rights abuses or protesting, for example, without being in the purview of a corporate or government entity, I think that really lends to more open conversations which move communities forward faster. So I think that's the main kind of thing that I think about when I think about the advantages of Session for individuals and groups. We've kind of developed these products out in unison. I think they also relate to each other as well. As I said, Oxen is kind of the incentivization layer for Session and Lokinet, and we're hoping in the next couple of months to integrate Lokinet into Session as well to be able to provide the onion routing aspect of it, because we're kind of just using onion requests right now, which is a kind of a specific layer just for Session. So all of these products will kind of complement each other in the future too. I would say that most people right now know that privacy is an important aspect in their life, but I think people need to be, and this is going to sound a little harsh, but I think people need to be willing to sacrifice some of the usability things that they get from non-private applications. It's Facebook has Facebook, Google, like all of these services which collect your data, like they have an inherent advantage to companies that are trying to build private technologies because they have all of this data. They're able to create better like social graphs between users. They're able to recommend them, friends that they might be interested in, or, products that they might be interested in, pages they might be interested in. All of this like predictive functionality that they can provide by collecting data gives them an advantage over companies that don't collect that data. The issue is that, that advantage is kind of funneling all of these users because they're getting a better user experience into a lot of these applications. The private applications that can't collect that data, I think, are having a harder time attracting new users. So I think from a user point of view, people need to be aware that there is a trade-off here, which is, the UX of something that's private is probably not going to be as good or as perfect as a service which collects your data. But there's other advantages that you get. You don't get advertised weird things because you click on one link. You don't have to have the risk of your data flowing to corporate and state entities who know everything that you browse, everything that you like, all of your friend group, which is really scary for a lot of people. So yeah, I would encourage people to realize the trade-off and maybe reanalyze why they're using some of these services over privacy enhancing tools.